All right, you took the black pill. I don't know what possessed you to do it, but you took it, and here we are. Or maybe you didn't take it and you just want to know what I have to say about it. Whatever. Point is, we're talking about the black pill, and this is probably the most depressing of the pills that I offered, but we got to talk about it because it's possible. It could happen. Honestly, I think as of right now, you could make an argument that it has a better chance of happening than any of the other pills. Like, it's not looking as bleak as it was after that Packers game, but I still could see this playing out. So we got to talk about it and we got to prepare for it and we got to figure out a way it can work. So, since it's been a little while since I went over all this, the black pill is basically you run it all back from this year in 2022. Same coaches, mostly. Same front office, mostly. Point is, Pete and John come back. But you lose Wilson. Wilson gets traded. And you try to rebuild around a new quarterback. So, while I have really kind of come around on the whole moving on from Wilson thing, and my optimism in Wilson right now is low, I have to admit it, I believe he can be fixed, and I believe he can still be good. So, while I would be okay with moving on from him this offseason, I definitely think that the coaching staff and front office is a bigger problem right now. And to me, the damage might be too significant to be undone. Excuse me. But I think that letting Wilson go and keeping the coaching staff and front office intact is the worst of all worlds. Now, the voters agreed. Here's the poll that I posted a month ago. 69% wanted to keep Wilson and get rid of the coaches. 12% said they wanted everything to get blown up. Blue pill, 9%, they wanted to keep it all. Only 1% of voters chose the black pill, so probably around like 20 people out of 1,600. So, yeah, not a lot of black pillars, but I want to talk about the scenario anyway because we might not like it, but it's very possible. Bottom line is Carroll has 4 more years left on that contract at $12 million a year. He might decide, even if he hates it, even if he's not having fun, he might decide, you know what, I need this money. I'm not walking away from this money. I'll just go through the motions until they kick me out. So, black pill, let's talk about it. We're going to run through some aspects of the black pill, and I'll give my thoughts on it, and you guys can let me know what you think down below. So, the summary of the black pill is, first, you start with the assumption that Wilson cannot learn a real offense. That for whatever reason, it's done. Wilson cannot do anything other than a simple offense that is chuck it deep. You convince yourself that that's the problem. You convince yourself that Wilson is the problem. And you trade him. So that right then and there is something that very few people are going to be able to swallow. Even someone like me, who has my doubts about Wilson. I certainly don't think he's the problem here, but the black pill is basically that. It's saying that, hey, Carroll's fine, Schneider's fine, Wilson's the reason why we're not making deep playoff runs. So that's going to be a hard stop for a lot of people, I think. So once you do that, you find a good trade partner to gain assets for a reload. And I say reload because you're probably not going to be able to rebuild with this same coaching staff because Pete is going to be 71 next year. He's not looking to rebuild. So whatever happens, it needs to happen quick. So you need to both trade Wilson and then quickly build a good team again. Lot to ask for. So you roll forward with a similar team and similar schemes in 2022. So the cover 3 stays. The 4-3 defense stays. A lot of the players that could go one way or the other in a new coaching staff will stay because Carroll likes them. And you try to put together a decent season with a different, cheaper, and more game-managey quarterback in 2022. Maybe you make the playoffs, maybe you don't. And then you have a transition to a new era not really a new era because it's still Carroll and Schneider, but new face of the franchise, new direction of the franchise, whatever, by 2023. So that's basically the quick and dirty summary of the Black Pill. It's not something that I talk about with a lot of positive energy, to be perfectly honest. To me, you're just marrying yourself to mediocre at best football and hoping that you assemble such a god level of talent you can get away with it, which I don't believe can happen anymore, especially when we suck at drafting and we don't sign the big free agents. So we're not off to a good start, are we? But I can pretend to be a black pillar for a few minutes to try to give you guys this video where we talk through a reasonable scenario. So, the difficulties with the black pill are similar to some of the difficulties with the red pill. Maybe even more so. You need to find a trade partner that Russell Wilson would approve of that has enough assets to make you happy. You have to then turn around after the Wilson trade and get a top-end quarterback. And when I say top-end, I don't mean like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or somebody like that. I'm talking about a good quarterback. Somebody who can start and win and play winning football. You can do this with the draft, or you can do a reclamation project from another team. I'll talk through some of those scenarios later in this video. You make a defensive scheme that seems incompatible with the current defensive talent and current era of football work in 2 years. Now, I know Matty F. Brown on Twitter and some of the other people on Seahawks Twitter feel differently, but I think it's fairly clear that the talent the Seahawks defense has is not very compatible with the actual scheme. Like Jamal Adams seems like he would do better in a 3-4 defense. Seems like he would do better in a blitz-heavy defense. I know that there are defenders of the scheme out there, and a player like Jamal Adams is fit in it, but it doesn't seem to me that it's a great fit. Jordan Brooks playing will linebacker is not a great fit, so you got to find a way to make it work. And after all that, you need to deal with the fact that the NFL has kind of solved what you're doing. They know what you're doing now. So you got to get around that. You got to utilize the Russell Wilson trade assets on the right players for this particular reload. So you need to, excuse me. So you need to get those draft picks, and then you actually have to utilize the draft picks right, which we have not done in a long time. In fact, you could argue that the higher our draft pick is, the worse we do with it. So you need that pattern to suddenly switch. And then you need to get an aging head coach and an impatient fan base to sign off on a plan that may take some time. This to me is kind of the biggest issue I have with keeping Carroll if you trade Wilson. Carroll's not interested in a long-term rebuild. He's not interested in anything that's going to take more than a couple years, maybe more than 1 year. He's 71 years old. He's at the end of his life. He's the oldest head coach in the league. Is he 71 now or is he 70? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Probably not super interested in anything that'll take forever. That leads to impatience. That leads to bad decisions. That leads to quick band-aids. And yeah, it leads to a team that is not as good as you need it to be. And then you need to build a roster that can win at the highest levels with the limitations of having Carroll as your head coach. I don't feel like I need to go into detail on that. You guys know how I feel about Carroll. Okay, let's go forward, starting with part 1. And this one will look familiar to most of you guys. You find a trade partner for Wilson. I already talked about all this stuff in the red pill video, so I'm not going to go into depth on it. But basically, I list all the teams that could be trade partners with Wilson. And I list the current status of their draft picks, which have changed over the last month. The Dolphins pick is now 14th overall from the Niners. So that pick has gone down in value. The Steelers pick has gone down in value a little, or up in value a little bit to 18th. Browns pick has, I think, stayed the same. The Broncos pick has gone up in value a little bit, but their second from the Rams has gone down in value a tiny bit. The Eagles picks have gone way down in value, but they're still extremely valuable. The Washington football team's pick has gone down in value. The Giants' 2 first-round picks have gone up in value. The Saints pick has gone up in value, I think. So the finer points of which team has the most valuable picks have changed a tiny bit, but not a lot. You're still basically looking at the same general structure on a lot of this stuff. The long shots are still the same: Texans, Bears, Bucks, Falcons. Unlikely you could get anything going there. I still think that the ideal trades would be with the Eagles or the Giants, and if I can't have one of those two, maybe the football team. The main change from your previous considerations would be that a QB with potential being included in the trade would be more important, because Carroll is not really the kind of head coach who's going to go, oh, you got to get me the next Peyton Manning with the #1 overall pick. Give me, Archie Manning or whatever, whoever that hot prospect at QB is going to be in a couple years. He's going to be thinking, just give me an okay quarterback and I'll win with my defense. And you guys know how I feel about that, but we're blackpilling here, right? I mean, I don't have a choice in the matter. So if Pete Carroll could get like a Daniel Jones or a Jalen Hurts and have them be good, that would probably satisfy him. Just somebody who won't turn the ball over, hits some big plays, uses his legs, uses his mobility. Even a Taylor Heineke, by the way. And Taylor Heineke might really be a kind of Pete Carroll quarterback. So, either way, I think the Eagles, Giants, and football team remain the most appetizing trade partners. Hurts and Heineke have their draft stock up a little bit right now. Jones's stock is down right now. But it's all kind of the same idea to me. I think that one of these teams, you could make it work. You need a few different things to go your way. You need Wilson to be okay with it. You need the other team to be okay with it. And you need the assets to be right. But I believe it could be done, and you could end up with a pretty decent haul. All right, moving on, we're going to go to remove roster fat, which is, we did this in the Red Pill video, I think, and I think we did it in some of the other videos as well. I don't really feel like anything has changed. Bobby Wagner, you still need to either cut him or give him a massive pay cut, because you can't pay him $20 million next year. Carson needs to go because he probably needs to retire, and you're going to have a dead cap hit for that, but that's what it is. Jason Myers, you're probably going to cut him just because paying $5 million to a kicker don't make no sense. So you can open up a lot of cap space like that. There are a couple other guys on this team, or actually I'd say about 10 guys that could go or could not go, depending. The 3 guys who I think are really definitely going to go would be Dunlap, Collier, and Blair. Dunlap very obviously has nothing left. Even Pete won't play him. Collier, Pete won't play him. And I don't think Pete ever really liked Blair that much, but now he's had 2 massive injuries in 2 seasons in a row. I think it's over. The other players that you could cut, like a Nick Bellore or a Gabe Jackson, I think Pete would rather keep those guys. Just, that's my feeling. Whereas a new coach would come in and maybe say, I want a clean slate at these positions. Pete traded for these guys. Pete acquired these guys. So he's going to be more likely to say, no, I like that guy. I think he's good. And it's not that they're bad. It's just that it's an opportunity to save money and get a little younger at a certain position. So these would be my guesses on the releases. You can get up close to $100 million without doing anything else, by the way. So that's not bad. Part 3, you have the extensions that you have to worry about. It's the same as it was in the other videos. The main one is Metcalf. You're looking at like 4 years, $100 million. I don't think there's any way that Metcalf gets traded no matter what, but Carroll especially would not trade Metcalf, I don't think. I think Carroll loves that guy. I think he loves him since he drafted him. I think that Metcalf was a Carroll pick, and I think that Carroll would do whatever it takes to keep Metcalf around. And as for the argument that Metcalf would leave if Wilson leaves, remember, guys, we're the only team that can give him big money a year early. Money is the thing that talks with most of these guys, especially at this point in Metcalf's career when he's made very little money. So I'm not worried about that. Metcalf will take a $100 million extension over playing another year on his rookie deal. I seriously doubt he would go, no, I'd rather play out the last year on my rookie deal so I can hit free agency in a year, when I'm not even going to do that because you're probably going to franchise tag me. Like, no, you don't want to do that dance, okay? So I think Metcalf's going to stick. And then there are a group of other guys that you could or could not bring back, depending on how you feel. Diggs, Everett, Woods, Collins, Neal, Monet. It's the same list as before. You guys know. Let's skip past this part. We've already been over it. So part 4 is where things get a little more interesting. You decide on either rebuilding or reloading. And if you remember the thing that I said, I don't think Carroll's going to be down with a full rebuild. He'll be down with a reload, and maybe he'll be okay with that reload taking a year, maybe 2, but Carroll's not looking to build something that won't be good until his contract's up. I mean, that's something that a young head coach does with a lot of leeway. So Carroll, after this Wilson trade, if it happens, is probably going to want to build a team that can win in 2022, but if not, it has to be ready to go by 2023. So that kind of forces you to do things a certain way, I think. Most importantly, you have to get veterans on that offensive line, because we need 3 new starters on the offensive line, tackles and center. And I don't think rookies are the guys. I mean, I have no problem with rookie offensive linemen, of course. But rookie offensive linemen are going to make a lot of mistakes. They're going to give up a lot of plays. They're going to get your quarterback killed, even the good ones. Walter Jones is a rookie, got beat a lot. They have to learn. And if we're going to try to win next year, we don't have time for them to learn. So right off the bat, you're saying, okay, we got to get veteran offensive linemen. So Teron Armstead and Austin Corbett would still be my guys to get for left tackle and center, but Pete's not going to do that. John's not going to do that. We don't do that around here. We don't get the prime cut of beef. We get the gristly, fatty piece and decide that it's good enough. And if Pete wants to change his modus operandi and John wanted to change their modus operandi this offseason, then good for them, but I doubt it happens. So at left tackle, I think you're looking at the following 3 guys. George Fant, who I think will get cut by the Jets. Taylor Decker, who I think is going to leave Detroit because they have Sewell. And Cam Robinson, the to-be free agent left tackle from the Jaguars. Those 3 guys are pretty good, and they would be serviceable starters, but they're not going to knock your socks off. They're okay. At center, I like Jason Kelsey, who's going to be a free agent at 34. Matt Paradis, who's having a good season in Carolina, and Ben Jones, who was having a good season in Tennessee as well. Now, none of this stuff is terrible, and the right quarterback in the right kind of offense could probably make it work. It's not out of the question. I don't think it would be good enough for Wilson because Wilson holds onto the ball a lot and likes to go for deep plays, but the right quarterback and the right offense, yeah, it might be okay. Okay, so that would leave right tackle, and I still think that you could get a rookie at right tackle and survive. 4 veterans and 1 rookie at right tackle, and then you do a lot of work to protect the rookie from making mistakes. Like if Daniel Falele is there in the early second, you could pick him up. But given this situation, I think you're either going to re-sign Brandon Shell or pick up Morgan Moses. That would be my guess. And both those guys are going to be okay, but they're not going to be great, and they're not going to be long-term solutions, so it's not as sexy. So I think you could put the offensive line together like that, and if you have a quarterback who understands how to get the ball out of his hands quickly and an offensive scheme designed around quick passes, or some combination of those 2 things, it could work. These guys are not bad players. It just... You would have to find the right quarterback at that point. And the problem is, if your plan is to wait until 2023 to get the next quarterback, or you try to get the next quarterback in 2022 and it doesn't work out, then these guys are going to get old before things really get chugging. So you're really betting it all on 2022 being at least decent and you getting a quarterback who can at least be decent. So if we use our free agency money on offensive linemen like this, then you can use your first-round picks on defensive players, because presumably you're going to have at least 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 first-round picks And you can now use those on defense, which we know Pete would like to do anyway. And I don't mind it either, because defensive rookies tend to be more likely to be able to be part of something great. When I think about, like, rookies on the offensive line, I think about players who have a lot of learning to do. But on defense, I see a lot of players come in and ball out as rookies. And they can help be big parts of Super Bowl teams, like Bosa on the 49ers a few years ago. So you could bring in Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan with your top 10 pick. You could bring in Stingley Jr. from LSU with your top 10 pick. And Carroll could get to have his defense, and hopefully he'd be able to use blue chip talent like that and get something good out of it. The only defense that you can make of Carroll's draft picks and Schneider's draft picks recently is that we haven't had any top picks. And if we're being straight honest, when you're picking in the top 5 or top 10, it's a lot easier to draft because the top 5, top 10 prospects are obvious to everyone. So hopefully in this scenario, he could at least know enough to draft those guys. All right, part 5, we decide on offensive coordinator. So there are a lot of reasons why I don't want Shane Waldron to be the scapegoat this offseason, because I don't think it's a good idea to have your quarterback change offensive coordinators after every season. That's what ruined Alex Smith's career, remember? I don't think that I don't think that it's healthy to give Pete Carroll another scapegoat, another person he can point to and say, no, it's his fault. It's all his fault. It's not me. I'm great. I'm awesome. I'm perfect. I'm beautiful. I don't want to do that. I'm tired of that. But if you move on from Wilson, things change a little bit, because now you can completely remake the offense and you're going to get a new quarterback anyway. So if you decide you don't like Waldron or you feel like you want to go in a different direction, this is a good time to do it because you're bringing in a new quarterback anyway. Now, whether or not we decide to move on from Waldron at this point in this scenario depends on whether or not Pete likes Waldron or if he only hired him because he had to. There was a lot of pressure this offseason to hire the modernized offensive coordinator, right? Somebody young who came from a good tree. Because I'm cynical about Pete's mentality right now, I think that if it was up to Pete, he would have hired one of his kids. But he knew that if he did that, the fan base would revolt. And even this organization, which seems to live to cater to Pete's desires at times, would go, okay, no, you're not going to do that. This is not a frat house. This is not a family compound. This is a football team. So, I don't know. I don't know if Pete likes Waldron. I don't know if Waldron was only hired because Wilson liked him. I don't know if Pete just felt the gun on the back of his head that said, you got to hire somebody young with some good stock behind him. I don't know. The problem is, if Carroll moves on from Waldron, he's probably going to get somebody who has a ceiling down by my ankles. Somebody who he knows is bad, but is bad in a way that he feels like he can control, which is exactly what Brian Schottenheimer was. I'm talking Kirby Wilson. I'm talking Darrell Bevell. I'm talking Dave Canales. I'm talking his kid. Because remember, in this scenario, basically what's going on here is Pete is grabbing more power in the organization. He's basically saying, no, I'm the solution. Wilson's the problem. Give me more power. So he might get away with something like that. An offensive coordinator who will just be a bobblehead that only knows how to shake his head up and down, doesn't really know how to call a good game, but at least Pete can control him, or God forbid, an in-house hire that could include his son. So, yeah. All right, now we're off that depressing subject. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. This is actually pretty easy, because the thing is, Carroll put this roster together, and he likes these players. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So, the difference is, some of the players who I thought were going to go somewhere else are probably going to stay, because Carroll likes them. You bring in somebody like Eric Bieniemy or Lincoln Riley or Brian DeBole, they're not going to feel any way about those guys. So a guy like Al Woods is likely to be re-signed, or more likely to be re-signed. Bobby Wagner, instead of just getting cut, is more likely to just have his contract redone. And this puts a ceiling on the potential of the team. It does. I think that you have a much higher ceiling if you're willing to move off of these old guys who are only going to get worse. However, it does mean you don't have to worry about replacing as much. To me, the key decisions are Quandre Diggs and DJ Reed. Those guys are going to cost some money. Diggs is probably like 11, 12 million. DJ Reed's probably going to be 8 to 10 million. Now, I think if you bring in another coach and GM, they're going to let those guys go. But Carroll and Schneider might say, no, I traded for Diggs. I brought DJ Reed in, and he's one of my recent Reformation projects. And we know that Carroll loves defensive backs. He's probably going to go, yeah, I want to keep those guys. So better odds you keep them. At that point, if you really look at the defense, the only thing you really have to do is bring in some edge players, because you're going to lose Rasheem Green and Carlos Dunlap. Probably guys like Collier and Kimdichie are going to get out of here as well. You can do most of that with the draft haul from Wilson. You can bring in Aiden Hutchinson, and most of the problem is solved right there. You can pick up a couple of cheap free agents who might be looking for prove-it deals, like a Dante Fowler Jr., and you're probably going to be okay there. So in this scenario, at the very least, you don't have to rebuild the whole defense. You're just going to replace like one or two pieces, and you're going to roll in. Now, is this the defense we want to roll into 2022 with? No, not me. I don't want it. To hell with that. No. I don't believe in this defense. I believed in them for a little bit, and then they rewarded me by getting destroyed by Colt McCoy. So, no, I don't want this, but in the spirit of trying to at least broach the bright side, at least you don't have to worry about replacing everything, I guess. Well, hey, I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying, but I'm not seeing a lot of good stuff happening in this scenario. Okay, we're almost done. Part 7, decide on quarterback after 2022. So, this is pretty simple. You bring in your stopgap QB in 2022, and there are two options here. Either you bring in a known like a Bridgewater or a Fitzpatrick, and just go, okay, go get the kicked out of you this year. It's cool. Just try not to die, and then we'll move on next year. Or you bring in one of the young guys with some modicum of potential. Daniel Jones, Taylor Heineke, Jalen Hurts. I would even throw like Drew Lock or Tua in there maybe. And then you consider, if they play well in 2022, trying to build the next era of Seahawks football around them. I'm not a big fan of this, obviously, but if you get Jalen Hurts and he looks like he can be a top 10 quarterback for you, then maybe you decide that, hey, that's good enough. I just need to do these other things well. Now, it's not great because Jalen Hurts will be up for an extension by then, I think. I'm pretty sure that's how it would work even after a trade, but you could do it. Now, if that doesn't happen, and it's very likely that it doesn't happen, the 2023 draft should have good quarterbacks you can pick from. There are going to be some players that I don't even know about yet who are going to be really highly touted in that draft. I think it's the Archie Manning draft, and he's going to be the main guy probably, but I think you could definitely decide to use your first-round pick on a quarterback there and then make that be the guy of the future. So at this point, the offensive line, whether it's rookies or not, should be ready to protect the new quarterback. And the offense should be ready to go. The problem becomes if you sign a bunch of old heads to be your offensive lineman, like Jason Kelsey. Is he going to have anything left? We don't know. But the point is, there's going to be some stuff in place for him to step into. And that's really all I got for the Black Pill, guys. Not a lot that I like here, but I tried. And if you squint and if you look at it in the right light, you might be able to see a successful reload, retool, soft rebuild, whatever. But I'm going to stick by what I've said for a while now. I don't think that this team is going to find the kind of success that we want in this current regime. I think somebody in that regime has to go. Somebody at the top. Not a coordinator, not a position coach at the top. But hey, this could happen, and we got to prepare for it. Got to be ready for the possibility. So I'll talk to you guys later today. Peace out, go Hawks. Let me know what you think down below.